And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden. We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights. So the only way we're going to get some of this oppression and exploitation away from us or aside from us is come together against the common enemy.
I don't want you to protest, I don't want you to riot, I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad. You've got to say, I'm a human being, God damn it! My life has value!
We get together, have a few laughs.
Welcome to Iowa Talk Guys Podcast. I'm your host, Teepee. I'm here with...
the other host, Theo.
Yeah. And we're here to talk to you about what we believe to be the road to war. I mean, it's been being paved for a while. We've talked about it before.
Yes, with Russia. I think in particular, there's a group in Washington that is pretty hostile towards Russia for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Russia's nice or cool or
right.
anything, but
at the same time,
you don't have to be hostile.
they're not chums to be messed with.
No.
They're not a bunch of chumps.
Not at all.
So, before the show, before we recorded, we were discussing, there's a lot of misconceptions that people have of what they've been hearing. And we even looked up, we went and DuckDuckGo'd some stuff, and it was ridiculous. But a lot of people have the misconception that these Ukrainian civilians that just had a couple months of training with a few other people that had some military combat experience are just schwacking the Russians left and right. Right?
Well, I do think that the Russians, they don't have an all-volunteer force. They have a lot of conscripts and whatnot as well. I don't know what the breakup or the divide of the forces are. Like if the guys in Ukraine are regulars or whatever.
Yeah, there's people that do
or what have you, but
right, there's people that do all that research that you can go do a dive into that if you'd like. But all the gory and grimy details of exactly what's going on in Ukraine are minuscule to, I really think, what's going to be happening on the world stage here soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
What this is leading up to. And that's why we're calling this the road to war.
Well, there are people in power that want it.
Yeah. War is a racket.
It's kind of like a lot of the World Economic Forum stuff we're talking about and whatnot. They sort of want these high prices to deter us from using traditional sources of energy and further weakening the middle class and the poorer folks'
the lower
standards of living.
Class, yeah. Absolutely.
And then they will usher in the replacement, this replacement system, right?
Order out of chaos, right? They create the problem, and then they create the solution to the problem. They've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. They want to go green, and we have to sacrifice for it.
Which is not even really. We got to get some people on the show to discuss that, because from my understanding, nuclear energy is some really clean burning stuff, like
the cleanest there is, and apparently the safety of nuclear these days, as far as reactors being able to cool down and not having any more. Speaking of Ukraine's Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island incidents,
or Fukushima,
I thought that was a problem of putting generators in between the nuke plant and the sea. So when a tsunami came in and you didn't, the first thing you lost were your generators. Yeah,
and then you start having radioactive waste leak into the ocean.
I don't know if that's 100% true or not. But.
Well, All I know is a lot of dead things were floating up on the beaches of the West Coast here in America.
Yeah?
Yeah. Huh. They're even warning about radioactive waste, like people's household items and stuff coming all the way across.
What, in containers and stuff?
No, like just stuff that was washed out from the tsunami.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, it's washing up on shores, and I think up in like Washington and stuff.
I had heard some crazy fish stories and whatnot, but back on topic here, Russia, Ukraine. The most common misconceptions, in my opinion, are that by most people, and I think I don't watch enough mainstream media. Here's one of the problems. Frankly, you know what? I'll just go ahead and admit it right now. One of the biggest problems with putting a podcast together is that I don't really watch a lot of mainstream media. I should, but I don't, because I don't believe them whatsoever, and I have not for a number of years.
Right.
It just makes me angry to listen to them talk. Joy Reid and whatnot, and all these people.
It's all this propaganda, horse crap. I understand. Yeah, and that's why we have a team, because Erock and I do look at some of the mainstream media stuff, but it's really hard because, especially with this, it's really hard to believe what is actually going on. But when you look at out of the U.S. sources of information,
it's absolutely the Russians have it in the bag.
The rest of the world is painting a very different picture of what's going on in Ukraine.
In fact, Douglas McGregor, Colonel Douglas McGregor, the retired Army colonel, said that the only thing that would sway the Ukraine-Russia war right now would be U.S. ground troops. Well, that sounds like a stupid idea.
It sounds like a deep state, deep throat in the plan type of guy to me. Like, are you serious? That's the last thing that we want. Look what
a ground conflict with Russia.
Yeah, how dumb is that?
I think that the consequences of that would be nuclear war.
Oh.
100%.
At least not nuclear war, but a bunch of Moabs be dropped everywhere.
I don't think that the Russians would have any choice at that point if they were squaring off against U.S. ground troops in a country.
On their own front step.
On their border. No way. No way. That's nuke territory. Right? Wouldn't you?
I would agree. I mean, and they have been warning about that. And that's another stuff we have here. Let's get into some of these articles that we have. I mean, people, so I said, the misconception, we started off talking about that, is that, Ukraine is winning this invasion, this conflict, right? And we've said it before on the show. Do you really think Russia was just sitting back watching the U.S. invade Iraq and Afghanistan and all these other UN countries and just twiddled their thumbs
we talked about this earlier before the show.
Look at all those neat toys they got. Like they're a bunch of Neanderthals, don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, like Russians are dumber or something than Americans.
They're still looking for Anastasia. They don't know what's going on. Right?
No, they're particularly capable of modern economics, modern warfare. It would turn out, as if you actually look at the sources that you brought up earlier from outside the United States. Military Summary is one of them that I watch on YouTube. No affiliation, just one that I watch. Mm-hmm. If you look at it, it's kind of like I believe we talked about on a prior episode, was that Russia was trying to go into Kyiv so fast to pressure a deal. U.S. and Western Europe started using it as a proxy war.
Yep.
So the Russians started withdrawing. Oh, the Ukrainians are beating the Russians back. No, they're not. The Russians were, in the first place, they were passing up Ukrainians. Now they were going back, regrouping, and this time it's a meat grinder.
Right.
Nobody is getting left behind. There will not be any of passing up of Ukrainian units. And if you actually look at Military Summary Channel, it's exactly the way that it's drawn up.
Yep.
In fact, yes, they are not anywhere near Kyiv really, but they have Donbass, which is what they went for, which is what essentially Russians anyway.
Yeah, mostly people, Russian speaking.
Sort of Russian speaking.
Least,
and sort of lean that way.
Right.
They took Crimea in 2014, obviously, and then if you look at it, it looks like they are collecting forces in Crimea to head towards Odessa, and if they get to Odessa, which they took Mariupol, I think that Kharkov there's still some fighting going on, and then there's another city further up north in that Donbass border region.
Yeah.
In the east. They landlock Ukraine if they get Odessa.
Yes. That's what, and we talked about that on a prior show. That's what they're working on, is landlocking. Yeah. So then Ukraine only essentially has these northern and western countries to be able to supply them, to get resupply lines through there.
Oh, yeah. Poland, right? Belarus.
Kazakhstan.
Kyrgyzstan, is that it?
Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan?
Yeah, it's not like Kazakhstan.
Slovakia. Hungary, Romania, yeah, Moldova, yeah, thank you. Good thing you're here, dude. Yeah, they take out Odessa, that's cutting off, the Black Sea.
They're landlocked. They have no exposure to the sea.
Right.
Or port.
That's going to cut down.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal, especially when
they choke off a country, essentially.
Well, especially with the grain.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. That is a major, feeds most of Europe.
If you read, and other countries as well, like within Africa and Asia, all over the world, it's a major export. They're a major, huge producer of wheat and other crops actually as well. I believe that as opposed to like where we live in Iowa, it's pretty much corn and soybeans.
Right. Correct.
They rotate those every few years, or
depending on your soil. Yeah, but most.
And over there, they've got more of a variety. Let's just say that. So. They have a lot of stuff to export, but if they're landlocked, that's not going to be happening.
Right, that's why they say Putin's causing this food shortage.
Well, from what I understand, the U.S. and I believe U.S. and particularly Ukraine, they're the ones that didn't send it, or Ukraine at least, possibly had a part in that stuff not getting sent out of the port at Odessa as well.
Almost like this thing's intentionally being prolonged.
Yeah. And I think that's the point of the United States and Europe using this as a proxy war with Russia.
Absolutely.
It doesn't benefit common people like us.
No, not one bit.
So perhaps you heard about Biden visiting Saudi Arabia. One article I sent you there.
Oh, yeah. Let me bring that up here.
Apparently after, I can't remember exactly what Biden was asking for. Once again, I don't pay attention. I need to pay more attention and start listening to...
You sent me Vladimir Putin spoke on the phone on Thursday.
Yes, it turns out within like a week after Biden visited Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman.
Oh, yeah, less than a week after Biden visits to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, he's on the phone with Putin.
Prince Mohammed bin Salman shakes hands with a Russian Vladimir Putin. Oh, that was a 2019 photo. But he was on the phone with him.
On the phone, and they had a casual and friendly conversation, apparently, about maintaining OPEC and then some sort of like OPEC Plus deal. Like getting more countries involved and whatnot.
Kind of like we were talking about the BRICS Plus on that other show.
One of you guys sent an article earlier this week, last week maybe, something like that, but it was about a new world order.
Yeah, we're going to get into that.
A new economic order amongst, really, it's BRICS countries doing it. I don't know how...
BRICS Plus.
I don't know how Brazil is going to fall into this, them being within our longitudinal...
Yeah, that's going to be interesting how that works out.
Hemisphere, but Russia, India, China, man, they got themselves. I mean, they're coming up into the first world, and think. Okay, so think about this: Russia, India, China, they are not slowing down on fossil fuels.
No,
and natural gas, all that.
They're buying up
fuels. Absolutely not.
All of our coal and stuff.
Yeah, they are freaking making first world accommodations is what they are doing. They're carving them. They're getting themselves up.
And I already know what Washington's going to say. It's the new axis of evil.
So one thing I heard on NPR this morning, I believe, as I was actually flipping on the radio, was that other countries that are still using fossil fuels need to help out and chip in to the United States, who stopped using fossil fuels, to do their part to save the Earth.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, it's idiotic. It's literally sacrificing the middle class and making them poor, not having any, poor people essentially not having an opportunity to get into the middle class because it's not there.
Yeah, it's going to be destroyed.
And while Russia, India, China, they're freaking like absolutely modernizing and first worlding themselves, because one thing I heard on YouTube earlier today by some folks in Europe talking about the Russia-Ukraine conflict is that essentially energy-wise and whatnot, and Europe's dependence on Russia, particularly Germany's dependence on Russia, Europe might be getting sent back to, let's say, a new modern technological middle age.
Well, yeah, we already spoke before about Germany, all the wood-burning stoves and wood or kiln-dried wood.
Yeah.
Firewood's all sold out.
Yep.
I mean, how well is that helping that country? I mean,
it's choking
which
Europe
is really
off.
ironic that
Germany,
this is like another country that, dude, the whole country, you had the wool pulled over your eyes like 3 times now.
Yeah. Come
on. Get with the program.
Well, it's happening here too.
It's happening here too, unfortunately. And, and one thing we were talking about in an article I sent you was about, we were talking about the U.S. helping to provoke and possibly, prolong this proxy war, this conflict in Ukraine, or eventually get us directly involved. We already know Putin's been warning the U.S., warning everybody, like, if you get involved in this is going to be bad for you. Okay, it's going to be
Poland.
Yeah, like, don't quit screwing around here.
Yeah,
like, we're not messing around.
It's not.
And we're not saying it's right.
I believe that what Putin said was any efforts within Ukraine by foreign military vehicles, anything, whether it's but in the borders, even behind the lines, but to get any supplies or what have you to the front, it is fair game.
Well,
it's fair game.
And it's funny that he said that because on July 21st, there's an article here, Military News, or military.com, Air Force open to sending A-10s to Ukraine to fight against Russian.
Yeah, I remember you sending me that article. That's pretty scary. That's pretty scary stuff, man.
It's pretty wild. Those A-10s are killing machines. That's all they were built for.
Yeah.
And to get those directly involved, I mean, really, the U.S. is the only one that has them, really, right? Them in Israel.
I don't know if Israel has them, but I do know that one thing that Douglas McGregor has said once again is that Russia has continued to evolve and change its tactics around whatever weapons Ukraine has been getting all along and the whole time. And once again, touching back to what we were talking about earlier, it doesn't look like Russia is having too hard of a time. They have the region. They're getting the regions they came for.
Yeah, they are. Despite the U.S. and other UN nations sending aid. And that's the other ironic thing. When you look around on the internet, you can see that Javelin missiles and other U.S. military hardware are showing up on the black market. I mean, come on. Ukraine, you ever seen that movie Lord of War? Like, let's go. I mean, that place has been a hotbed for black market weaponry since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991.
Ukraine is apparently ranked very high for human trafficking and overall corruption.
Yeah, weird. So all this stuff is happening.
That's why I don't understand why so many people are willing to put Ukrainian flags in their yard and whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. The only reason you're doing that is because you were told to do that.
Yeah,
essentially. The magic talking box told me.
Nobody knows anything about Ukraine.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, I was like, where was all this, these Ukrainian flags, and I stand with Ukraine when their civil war happened.
And the Ukrainian government was shelling Donbass, the part of Ukraine
their own
that
citizens.
Russia is taking right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Ukrainian loyalists, got shot in the streets, and Ukrainian parliament buildings got burned down, you know. And then there was those battles in the streets where people were getting shot. Nobody remembers any of this. It happened right after Sandy Hook.
Well, I was talking about shelling that happened in February of 2022, but you're talking...
Yeah, I'm going way back to...
Like 2013.
14.
2013.
That's when I was watching this stuff going on, and I was kind of I was like, this is something very interesting happening here, and I was paying attention to it back then. And it's hilarious because I've had conversations with people where I'm open up, I'm like, yeah, ever since 2013, this was going on, and they're like, oh, I don't know anything about that. And it's because mainstream media didn't make it.
They're not talking about it.
Yeah,
that's the point. It's lying by omission.
It's really ridiculous, and then it's ironic that we're in the information age, and I get it now. We're living in a really wild time where there's so much different disinformation that's being propagated by our own mainstream media, and nobody's being held responsible for these false narratives that they've helped push throughout the years.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Iraq has weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. We've talked about that.
Osama bin Laden.
Listen to our episodes, guys. This is the crap we talk about, the stuff that media doesn't talk about that's very important.
Yeah.
It's
September's coming up here soon. We're thinking what we're going to have to do. Obviously, we're going to have to do a special for 9/11.
Yeah.
It's
scary.
Yeah.
It's scary, but there's massive questions, huge questions.
Massive, craziness going on. Anyways, so moving forward with all this stuff, I mean, if I didn't know any better, it would definitely look like the U.S. is trying to
get in direct conflict with Russia.
Yeah.
Or using Ukraine as a tool to do so. Yeah.
Kind of like they use Japan.
It's pretty nasty business, but if you, once again, go back to particularly the post-World War II era of the United States superstate, let's call it, then, you see a lot of growth and just massive amounts of corruption, military operations in God knows what parts of the world, and there's a lot of them that we do know what parts of the world.
Yeah.
But once again, don't talk about it. People aren't educated on it. They don't talk. They don't teach all of the engagements that the United States has been in, and everywhere that the United States has had special operations soldiers. And
all they teach you is that John Henry, freaking Davy Crockett, American history hero, Western Front shit.
George Washington chopped down a cherry tree.
Yeah,
I actually don't think he did.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, he's not going to lie. He can't lie his way out of it.
Right.
The man can't lie. Our first president is such a godlike human being that he could not tell a lie.
Absolutely.
I can't tell a lie. I'm going to shoot you in the face, British officers. Bam. Right. They're not going to teach you any of this stuff. I had a history teacher in high school that, fortunately, this is prior to No Child Left Behind and all those other fun things where teachers started getting their jobs jeopardized in that fashion. But in our government-ran history book, it talked about JFK assassination. It was only like 2 paragraphs. Right. And he ended up dedicating a whole week to that because he said, we talked about that on episode 0, I think. But that's never going to happen again unless you're homeschooled, dude. So I really want to get into this. No. So with all this stuff going on, Ukraine, Russia, the U.S., other UN countries getting involved, Russia strengthening their ties with India, China.
Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
To an extent.
Making deals with Saudis. I mean, we've talked about the petrodollar on the show, too, before. We lose that. I mean, you think inflation's bad with 9.1.
Iran
Yeah, who's our like sworn enemy because of.
He's not used to people, or they're not used to people treating them nice, right? Or at least the U.S. treating them nice.
Right. No. But like I said, it is really weird, though. Still, Vladimir Putin was part of that. We've talked about that before, that World Economics Forum Young Global Leaders.
Yeah, that's...
Going off what he said here, though, this article is Putin warns West current world order is over and new era is coming. And I don't think he's kidding around.
From just what I've sort of been... studying isn't the right word, but, casually reading and whatnot, getting myself out of the mainstream media, essentially... Matrix, if you will, essentially for the past 15 years, I tend to think that he's not joking around. It's true.
Yeah.
And I think that a ton of countries, especially in the southern hemisphere, are ready for it. They've been pushed around by the U.S. for too long.
Well,
and Europe.
I mean, we've been kind of walking around like we have the biggest stick, and I think this whole time there could be countries that were just building a bigger stick in a shed that we didn't know about.
Yep.
And pretending to be our friends.
I think that bully is the correct word.
We have been bullying. Yeah, I mean, I love my country. I don't like what my government's been doing, especially learning all the actual stuff they've been doing, not this hokey-pokey frickin' John Henry, Paul Bunyan fairy tale stuff, right?
United States is the best place on earth. I think the whole point of what we're talking about here and why Russia Ukraine matters is because we have the best. Really do believe we have the best life there is.
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude.
In the whole world, there's nowhere else I'd rather live. I mean, we have to maintain it, and it's like we literally have saboteurs on the inside. It's like, why $47 billion to Ukraine on this, picking a side and using $47 billion, which that didn't make it to freaking Ukraine. By the way, all of that money.
What?
To buy weapons and help them
and aid.
Stick it to the Russians. It's coming out of our butts.
Yeah.
It doesn't help us. The United States foreign policy does not help the common man. And think here the pure financials of it are that the welfare state is the most expensive thing, and then the national security state essentially is after that. It's helped bankrupt. I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
It was a decent sized slice of that pie. And here's what it is. All of the money that we send, all of this stuff that we're sending to Ukraine, somebody else is going to build that stuff back up. They're going to build it up again. They're going to get government contracts to make it. They're going to make a ton of money, and it's really corporate welfare.
Well,
it's not people getting food stamps or an EBT card or yada, yada, yada. It's freaking corporate welfare.
Well, we already talked about the corruption with the Bromisma Energy Corporation companies and stuff on the episode 7. And, yeah, I mean, none of this stuff is going to help the common folks like us.
No.
The normal human being every day just trying to live your life, raise your family, have a good time along the way. That's not good enough for these people that are playing a giant chess game with, and we're all the pawns on the chessboard.
Yeah, absolutely. Literally, Russia, Ukraine, we as Americans are risking nuclear war. Nuclear war is being risked here.
Yeah, and they're going to lie to us, just like they did with 9/11 to rally us into a war. Send your children to die.
That's how they do it. They try to find a reason to want you to go to war.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, dude. I got sucked into it. I mean, granted, the Marine Corps was one of the greatest things I ever did with my life, but at the same time, the stuff that we were sent to go do really was unnecessary. Never should have happened. Never should have been there.
Do you want?
And I would never.
Do you want your children?
Absolutely not.
To join the Marine Corps?
No.
I mean,
it's a
fair question, right?
I don't want them joining any military branch. I mean, it's for some people, but I don't want my children going and being duped like I was and going off and fighting in a war that would be unnecessary. That doesn't. What has the war on terror done for our country?
I was watching Jurassic Park 3 yesterday with my wife. I've never watched that movie.
Oh, really?
And I can't remember the main actor guy's name, but has such a good American accent in the movie, but he's a British guy, and he was in other movies like Event Horizon. Do you remember?
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
You know the doctor dude whose wife,
he's chasing the ghost through the
took
ship.
her own life and whatnot. That guy, I can't remember his name, but so
because he was in the first Jurassic Park too.
Yeah,
I mean, also I should say.
he says to a student who takes the raptor eggs, and the raptors are smart enough to know that they have their eggs. He says, I had the best of intentions when he took them, and the doctor says, some of the worst things in history have happened with the best of intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, unfortunately, we're kind of having to ask that question, I think, with sort of U.S. foreign policy.
Sam Neill.
Sam Neill, there you go. Awesome. Thank you. Excellent actor.
Fantastic actor.
And really good. I'm like, this dude's American, because I'm really good at listening to accents. And
Yeah.
stuff. This dude's American accent in that movie was incredible.
Pretty good. He also did that movie In the Mouth of Madness. Fantastic. Check that one out.
Never seen it. Never even heard of it.
No, it's a great one. Anyways.
So, yeah, that's it. Man, it's unfortunate because serving your country is so could be so noble, but I mean, it's like there are crazies behind it.
Yeah,
there are crazies behind it.
And you've said it before on the show, and we said, there's nothing against any of our troops.
Absolutely not.
Except for the ones that know what they're doing when they're trying to make other people follow orders that really aren't good and the best intentions of anybody. Like, telling them to open fire on a guy hanging his sheets up in a tree. Stuff like that.
Well, yeah, if something like that were to happen.
Yeah.
That's very unfortunate.
It is.
We went all over the place there, talked about a ton of stuff in the last half hour or so. But the gist of it is that our media is lying.
Yes, through their teeth.
Ukraine is not... One thing I believe it was Douglas McGregor said, and maybe we've talked about it, maybe we haven't, but it's so hard to remember, man. But is that something you've never seen is a Ukrainian mechanized unit coming in, followed by infantry, pushing Russians back, making Russians run.
Where are those videos?
Never seen that happen.
No. And, last month, when we looked through this, we DuckDuckGo'd it. Last month, they were saying the Ukrainians were running out of munitions. They had all these Soviet-era artillery rounds. They needed more stuff. And the U.S., I read articles about the U.S. sending, are not that necessarily the U.S., I think it was British troops or Australian ones, but they were sending new artillery over there with people to train them on and all this stuff. But then now this month, they're saying that the Russians are running... You can't make this stuff up.
It's interesting you pulled up these articles.
You can't make this up. The Russians are... Now they're saying the Russians... The Forbes magazine saying the Russians are running out of ammunition.
I just don't believe it at all.
I do not believe that at all.
I don't think that... honestly, I'm to the point where I will say that as evil as they may be, these other leaders of other countries, like even Xi... if you got to try to find a little bit of good in everybody, these folks are forging their countries to be powerful into the future.
Right.
And unfortunately, ours are not.
Ours are still trying to be the world police, and we need to really get out of that.
Yeah.
I would really want to see our country bringing everything back home, giving Americans jobs, making our industry... But there's these snakes in the grass that are in charge that do not want that to happen. They're not happy with you living a good life.
It's a very complicated subject, like when you talk about... And this does really relate to Ukraine and getting involved presently.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think that it is worth the question. When you look at other places, like South Korea, Japan, and then, of course, collected into Japan is Okinawa.
Right.
They don't have the best relationship with China. But I think that it's worth the question, is it really any of our business? We've been asking this. Is it really even our business? Should we be defending them?
I mean, yeah, I'm not for the these foreign powers coming in and just conquering other countries and stuff, and violating other people's liberties. But why do we have to send our sons and daughters?
Taiwan. How did I forget that example? Yeah, why do we have to send our sons and daughters to defend Taiwan?
Right.
I don't think that we should.
I'm sorry. If Afghanistan's taught us anything,
Vietnam.
or anybody, or Vietnam, these people can pull this stuff off on their own.
Iraq.
If they have the patience, the will, power, the fortitude,
and they're not disarmed, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to go, but frankly, it's just kind of like, once again, I mean, if you look at the sort of geographical location of the United States, like, we should just worry about us.
we really should.
Just worry about us. Bringing manufacturing back home, having...
Right, and if we're not ready to move to renewable energy, like obviously we're not, then how about we stop being stupid?
How about we get slower on it and freaking try to let the market work?
Right, because that's what the free market does.
Yeah.
Weird concept.
To do stuff like that instead of just, Solyndra, about companies that go bankrupt and whatnot. And
right, or bail out the ones that you're buddies with that lobbied to help you, that gave you the lobbying incentive to pass the bill to get all this renewable energy crap on. I mean, really, how is this helping us? Like, don't be naive.
Let's worry about ourselves.
Right.
We're going to start doing a monthly update on this.
Yes.
The Russia-Ukraine.
The road to war.
The road to war.
And it may not, we're going to call it the road to war because this is probably going to escalate. If this continues to go on, this will escalate. It's going to pour over into other countries.
Yeah, we think this very easily could become World War III.
Unfortunately, and I know it's scary, and there's the other thing is that, we talked on another episode about getting prepared food-wise, stuff you can do to prepare your family. Start stocking up on food and stuff to survive at least a couple months without any help from anybody else. I would really recommend that.
Yeah, it could get really bad. I mean, just prices and everything, inflation getting worse. I mean, the U.S. dollar has just been... Everybody knows that the U.S. dollar has been overinflated.
Yeah. And guess what? The euro's getting overinflated as well.
Didn't we just go even recently?
We did. Yeah, with the U.S. dollar. Yeah.
Recently, yes.
Which...
The U.S. dollar even with the euro.
The euro used to be almost twice as much.
No, I believe it was like a 1.1, a solid 1.1.
Wow. Yeah, I think you're right. But it got to, I think, a 1.5 at one point a couple years back.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, it was always greater in value than the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. I mean, 10%. 10% or something.
It's pretty good.
Significant when you're taking a trip or a vacation or something like that.
Oh, yeah, when you gotta buy something in euros and you're like, 30 euros, and it's like, oh, crap, this is turns out it's 33 U.S. dollars or whatever.
I think that we should get back to some of the founding principles of the United States, like let Europe be on her own.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, not our business anymore. I don't think that we need to have such a strong military relationship with Great Britain, for anybody, any of them. It's not our place anymore.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for doing what you did for us in the past, but we really gotta,
and vice versa.
Yeah, we really gotta. Yeah, we've paid our debt back. We gotta take care of our own.
Yeah, it's just time to worry about North America
and our citizens. But unfortunately, these monsters won't do that. So.
No,
like Theo said, we're going to be doing a monthly update on this. We're going to be calling it the Road to War. This is the end of July, so we'll be bringing you guys one the end of every month. We'll have it a little bit more structured next time. I mean, I know we were a little all over the place, but there's a lot of stuff here. There's a lot of moving parts. As the month continues to go on, as time continues, there's going to be even more moving parts. So just don't buy in the mainstream narrative that, the Ukrainians are winning. Like we discussed in another show previously that, they said the Azov battalion was getting evacuated, and then like 2 weeks later, turns out they were surrendered. Right?
Yeah, apparently if you listen to some media, this is actually, I heard an American guy literally say, and this is something, another not reported thing. Well, here we are talking about Russia, Ukraine. But something that the media didn't talk about is that those guys were not evacuated. The Russians got them out.
Oh, yeah.
Treated them very humanely, actually.
That's good.
But I did hear a dude, actually, I think it was on YouTube, say, like, literally, it sounds bad, but, if they would have just waxed these guys, like, the world would have been a better place. They're like
the Azov Battalion?
Yeah, neo-Nazis. Literal neo-Nazis.
Absolutely, yeah. Their heroes was the German Panzer Battalion that came in and decimated the Russians in the area.
Stepan Bandera, he was a Jew hunter.
Oh, yeah.
He's part of their motto.
We should probably do a show on the Azov Battalion, just for schnitz and giggles.
We always say we should probably do a show, and it's like there's so much.
Hey, you know what? There is a lot.
We should just focus on the few things.
No, we got lots of shows coming down the pipeline, folks. And hey, you know what? If people want us to talk about it, we'll talk about it. So we're the talk guys, Iowa Talk guys.
Drop us some support.
So we're gonna wrap this one up. We'll bring you another one next month. Let's if you guys could follow us on whatever media platform you're listening to us on, share us with your friends if you find our information entertaining.
Just spread
or good.
word of mouth.
Yeah.
Get this thing hot and heat it up. We're just trying to talk some sense.
Yep. You can follow us on Iowa Talk Guys.
At Iowa Talk Guys.
At Iowa Talk Guys on Twitter. You can also follow us on Podbean. We're on Spotify, Audible, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music.
Chicka.
And if you would like to reach out to us, drop us a line. I'm Teepee, Teepee, at Iowatalkguys.com.
And I'm Theo, Theo, at Iowatalkguys.com.
So, thanks for listening, guys. We really appreciate it. Share and stay tuned.
Share, like, subscribe.
Yeah, all that fun stuff.
Iowa Talk Guys out.
Ooh.